Welcome to the On the Pen, the Weekly Dose podcast, your one-stop shop for obesity medicine news with your host, man on the pen, Dave Knapp. Welcome to On the Pen, the Weekly Dose for this tax day, Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Manjaro, Zepbound, Compound. That pen. That's what we talk about each and every week. And we got a little bit of a special edition today. First of all, I got to rush off to jury duty here in a little bit. So I wanted to get this podcast recorded because there's an absolutely wild story. It's actually a story that we've been covering now since October of 2023. And unfortunately, this problem doesn't seem to be going away. It seems to be getting more nefarious and more serious. Now, I want to paint a picture for you. Imagine you go to the pharmacy, you're filling your prescription for whatever medication, because I think that's the issue here, is that this problem transcends GLP-1s. You go to the pharmacy, you fill your medication, you take it home, you take it, you have some sort of adverse reaction or maybe no reaction at all because that medicine that you got from your pharmacy was counterfeit. It's happening. It's happening all the time, apparently, and it's happening right now with Ozempic. Now, this is a story, like I said, that goes back to October of 2023, where we've been covering this very closely at On the Pen, where you had pens for Lantus, the company Lantus, or is it Sanofi, that makes a insulin glargine product called Lantus, I believe is the name of it. And these are insulin pens that look very similar to an Ozempic pen. There are some key differences. We wrote an article about it at onthepen.com. Jump over there today. You'll see the featured article. It'll talk all about this. It'll give you images that will help you to determine whether you have fake Ozempic or not. But basically, what happened in October of 2023 is they had different versions of Ozempic. Now, you see on this Ozempic pen, you see that the chamber with the medicine is clear and there are no markings. You also see that the cap is gray. It's a very distinctive pen. Now, the Lantus pens had a very similar shape, a very similar design, but purple tips instead of gray. And there were markings on here similar to markings you would see on a insulin needle. There also wasn't this gray area. Now, if you're listening on the podcast, that doesn't do a lot for you, but you can go to onthepen.com and you can see this featured in this article. Now, what is happening? Fast forward to today. Well, as it turns out, there has been a warning issued by the FDA because they have seized several hundred units of counterfeit Ozempic, the 1 milligram pens, in the United States drug supply chain. Now, this is counterfeit Ozempic in boxes that look like Ozempic boxes, in pens that look like Ozempic pens, with, get this, lot numbers and serial numbers that spoof actual lot numbers and serial numbers, and pens that contain an unknown substance. Now, previously, it was identified that the substance within the pens that were counterfeit were insulin glargine. Now, if you inject yourself with insulin and you expect to be injecting yourself with 1 milligram of semaglutide, insulin has a dramatic effect on your blood sugar and can actually drive someone into hypoglycemia that can ultimately lead to death. It is a big deal. Now, bigger yet, we don't know what's inside of these Ozempic pens yet. It probably stands to reason that it's not the same thing. You think they would be able to identify that pretty quickly. So the FDA is aware of 6 adverse event reports associated with these fake Ozempic pens. However, none of them appear to be associated with the counterfeit product. A little bit confusing because the lot numbers on the boxes are associated with some adverse events, but they don't believe that they're associated with the counterfeit product, which uses the same lot numbers. So the FDA and Novo Nordisk are in the process of testing the seized products and do not yet again know the active ingredient inside of these pens, and they're working to protect the U.S. drug supply, says the FDA. Now, this is crazy. You know what's crazy to me is that this is not all over the front page of absolutely every news media outlet, because this should terrify people. And I don't mean to be dramatic, but if we can't go to our pharmacy and trust that what Walgreens or CVS or the mom and pop pharmacy on the corner is handing us in exchange for our insurance premium or our insurance deductibles and our cash pay price, if we can't expect that there's a sanctity and safety built within that supply chain to ensure that we have safe drugs, that undermines the entire system. So what I want to do is first raise awareness of this, because I've been clanging the drum on this, like I said, for almost 2 years, a solid year and a half. When this popped up over in Germany first, there were actually people that were dying from taking these counterfeit versions of Ozempic. It doesn't sound like it's gotten that serious here, but my goodness, we still don't know what people are injecting into their bodies when they believe they have the true Ozempic product from Novo Nordisk. So let's get into what we can do to identify these medications. Now, again, for those of you listening on the podcast, this isn't going to do you a whole lot of good to listen to a whole bunch of numbers. So I encourage you to either go over and watch the video version of the podcast on YouTube, or jump over to onthepen.com. It'll be the featured article on the front page of the website, and we will be able to show you what these counterfeits look like. But I'm going to throw it up on the screen here. You see the serial numbers and the lot numbers. So the serial number starting with 51746517, and it'll have a series of 4 numbers after that. But those first 8 numbers are the ones that you are going to want to pay attention to. 51746517, a serial number that begins with that. And that's found on the side of the box and with sort of a blue rectangular background and a QR code. And then a lot number, PAR0362. These are the counterfeit numbers that these counterfeiters are using that, again, mimic actual serial numbers that you would find on the box. Now, last time this story popped up, these numbers were completely arbitrary and were easily identifiable by a pharmacist, like at a glance, that they were likely not actual Ozempic lot numbers. Now, these ones are actually going a step further. That's why I said at the top, they're actually getting more sophisticated. They seem to be getting more sophisticated in their ability to spoof the actual serial numbers. So these are sneaking through the supply chain. Now, you might say, Dave, why is this happening, or how is this happening? I think it's obvious why it's happening, because there's always going to be bad actors that try to sneak in and capitalize where there's opportunity. And unfortunately, this has to do with people's direct health and could cause massive issues. But I think the bigger question is, how does this happen? And so really, this is happening at the distributor level, and we talk a lot about this on the pen in terms of like the supply chain of these medications and shortages, right? So you have the manufacturer Novo Nordisk, and Novo Nordisk sells to distributors, and pharmacies purchase their drugs from distributors. So this is happening at the distributor level, where there is likely a new distributor coming on the block that is offering Ozempic or boxes of Ozempic to pharmacies at maybe a discounted rate, maybe even not, but they're having to spoof a whole lot of information, because, as you know, these are cold chain medicine. So there is a lot of extra paperwork involved in ensuring that a injectable drug that requires refrigeration has been properly handled from the manufacturer to the distributor, while at the distributor, and then en route to the pharmacies that it ultimately is delivered to before it's delivered to patients. So they're having to spoof a lot of information along the way to dupe these pharmacies. But ultimately, the unbelievable The unbelievable truth here is that they are indeed able to infiltrate our pharmacy system. Now, shortages can be a big reason for this too. If the pharmacies are having a hard time getting it from the original distributors that they're used to using, of course they're going to be open to working with another vendor to acquire the medication for their patients. So this isn't necessarily just about a fake distributor offering, the ability for a pharmacy to make an extra buck. There's also the element of the shortages and just the ability to obtain these medications for their patients. So this is a story we will continue to track. My ask of you is that you would share this podcast or share the article at onthepen.com with anyone you know on Ozempic, the brand name. Specifically right now, the issue is with the 1 milligram dose with the serial number and lot numbers that we identified a little bit earlier. But the other thing that I want to make you aware of is this sounds like, and I'm just trying to go back through my sources here. It sounds like the counterfeiters that were caught here were sold from a Florida distributor and then quarantined in an Arkansas pharmacy. So those are the states sort of involved at this point. The state of Florida is where this alleged distributor was from, and then the state of Arkansas is the pharmacy that these fake Ozempic boxes and pens were actually located and then quarantined by the FDA. So those of you in the state of Arkansas, and I would say the state of Florida, and perhaps in the South in general, the South east there, I would be very vigilant if you're down there. Share this with any friend that you know is on branded Ozempic that lives in that area. This was a huge piece of news. Like I said, I don't feel like this is being covered enough, and it's hard to find this story in the mainstream media right now, and it has been since this story started. And so I just want to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible. So share the podcast or share the article at onthepen.com. You'll be able to see everything we talked about here, and I've got a little write-up there as well. That's what I got for you. I got to run because I have jury duty. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't do it without you. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Row, who bring this podcast to us each and every week. They offer the Row Body Program, which helps patients lose 15 to 20% of their body weight in a year when coupled with lifestyle modifications and appropriately prescribed GLP-1s when necessary. Listen, the Row Body program is amazing. If you're looking at branded medication again because of the loss of compounds, they are really adept at fighting those prior authorizations, helping you get approved for the medications to get back on the medications, as well as offering these Zep-bound vials directly through their Row platform. If you're going to start any new medication, make sure that you familiarize yourself with those new medications first and the potential side effects. All that is available at row.co/OTP. Thank you to Row for sponsoring the podcast. And thank you again for being here and for being the best part of what we do at OTP.